100 years. Wow.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
Did that kind of leave you wanting? 100 years of what? 100 years is a century. 100 years, you feel like you're 100 years old. These days, you might, in some ways. No, one of our fine sponsors, Taco, is 100 years old this year and celebrating it over the course of the year. And lest you think this is going to be some cheesy commercial, I can promise you it will not be, because my great friend John Hazen Jr. is here to, I'm sure, cause some kind of political ruckus with me, because he always deftly and gently walks into one with me. That's what happens whenever we talk politics. And you know, on Friday evenings, and if you don't know, because you're a first-time viewer, welcome. We tape our Friday shows on Thursday, and so when we do, we know that we can't catch the news cycle, and we'll catch up to it on Monday. Fridays give us a chance to kind of sit back and just chill, depending on the situation, right? Or expand a serious conversation. This is not so serious, but it is a nice visit when John's overdue. Certainly not overweight. He's lost a bunch to come in. Cat has my tongue, end of the week, being how it is. So here's before we get to the discussion of his business and business in general and some of his thoughts on that, he had a once-in-a-lifetime experience this last week when he was the exclusive guest of Congressman Jim Langevin at the State of the Union. And here's a picture of the congressman and Johnny together. I spoke with John on the radio about this last week. And you did say that this was a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Breathtaking in many ways.
It absolutely, and the seat I had put me in a position to make it even more so. I was dead center on the balcony on the side, directly across from the president's wife, and I had a view of the door, and I had a view of the podium, and you know, you're 100 feet from the President of the United States. That is a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Thanks for coming in, man.
It's wonderful to be here.
You know, thanks for your support of the show, but the purpose of our visit is to just shoot the breeze. I mean, you know, you've been interestingly quiet in the community because you're really, really focused on your business, and we'll talk about that later. But you were really really articulate about your experience at the State of the Union last week. I don't think you and I agree on a lot of the politics when it comes to the president. But even so, with all of the zaniness that was before it, during it, and after it, you still felt the magnificence of the country, right? Know, so talk to me about that.
You know, I love America. I really love this country and everything it stands for, and everything it's done for people, you know, and to have a chance. I've had the chance over the years to be in the presence of a number of different presidents, you know, Clinton and Barack Obama, and so I take that all aside and think about sitting in that room, that great room, which I've been in many times, but never in that kind of circumstance, and in the presence of so many interesting, thought-provoking people, you know, and to see them and to watch them and to sort of, you know, you see them on TV and all these different people, and you don't have much of a sense about how they act. But in that room, you can kind of watch the ones that are yaying and the ones that are naying, so to speak. Right? It's just very, very interesting. Just.
What was your take? You said something really interesting to me on the radio about it. If you really want to dig into the speech, maybe you want to watch it on television.
Yes, I have not done that.
Yeah, but the experience, I guess, is not unlike going to a major football game, the Super Bowl, or whatever, with the atmosphere and just the whole thing may take away from your ability to actually examine the X's and O's.
You know, yeah, it's interesting. What I said to you on the radio was, if you really want the substance of the speech, watch it on TV. If you just want the experience, it's like a football game. Do you want to really focus on the football game? Watch it on TV. Because if you're in the thing, you know, there's all kinds of other things going on. I never forget the first time I ever saw Barack Obama speak. It was at the Brookings Institute in Washington. There was only 7 people in the room, right? It was very small. He came to give an economic policy address. And so that somebody asked me the next day on the radio, what was it like? And I said, all I can tell you is the security guy had a big gun, and Barack Obama had black shoes on. Right? I don't know what else to say. I mean, the speech was good, but I was in the second row, and I was completely awestruck by the whole thing. Right? So it's a different sort of.
I wonder if that dynamic impacts good decision making in Washington day in, day out. Senators start to get regular in their gigs.
Have you been in that room before?
I've been in the Capitol.
Yeah. So you know that on a daily basis, there'll be some poor guy up there trying to make his case and making a speech and everything to himself. Right. There's nobody else in there. I don't know, some guy up in a big seat, I guess, but it's kind of quiet in that place normally. So I think they're all off in their cubby holes doing their thing.
Just the chances to be in high electricity environments, being one of 100 or one of 435, being a high-level cabinet secretary, being a high-level bureaucrat, administrator, you wonder whether these jobs become more important than doing the right thing for the people.
I think so. I tell you why. Just look at the left-right, right? I'm a pretty liberal guy, by the way. Everybody thinks I'm some kind of a far-right. I'm not. But I think if you just look at the room and how polarized it is, there were some good things, whether you liked his speech or not. And I happen to think it was pretty good myself, but at least the 80% I listened to, back to that. But you know, even some of the really good stuff was met with nothing on one side of the room. You know, so I don't know how that translates into decisions.
The Democrats historically have always sat for symbolic response to issues, but their faces have changed.
Oh, the attitude has changed.
Was it in the room? Was it palpable?
Yeah, it's nasty.
Nasty.
You know, you can hear. You know, I mean, I never experienced booing, for instance. I mean, seriously, hissing and booing, and you know, there were some people that walked out, and you know, I mean, it was.
We've also never experienced a chance of 4 more years.
That was really interesting, yeah. And by the way, there is. I mean, everybody's doing their thing. You know, those guys are popping up and down like jumping beans, and the rest of them are sitting there. And I was struck by that. That you know, back to the watch it on TV versus be there in person. I think I was struck by a little bit by the just sort of the kind of the attitude. Pretty nasty.
Disappointing.
Disappointing. No, I would still say that's part of our system. That's, you know, I was talking to the guy sitting next to me, and I said, "You're not clapping at any of this stuff." He said, "Because I don't like the guy." And I said, "Oh, okay." And then I clapped at something, and he said, "See, that's just the beautiful thing about freedom of speech. We can do what we want and say, and in this case, we can be civil about it, right?" So, I mean, there was some of that going on too. But
fascinating. Hey, listen, the company's 100 years old. We'll talk about it when we come back. Yeah, 100 years. Takeo Comfort Solutions has been in business, and you know, we're not here to do a commercial. I think it's phenomenal when businesses meet these milestones. And look at these, Johnny. Look at these old pictures, huh?
Oh, right.
This is something. I mean, it was your dad's company.
That's not our existing factory, sir.
The old, well, the story. The company's been in the family the entire time.
Yeah, my grandfather started in 1920. Elwood White. You know, he started, and there's a little, I can't quite understand. He may have bought some broken down little thing that made water heaters, but he got it going. He was a salesman for a boiler company, and he wanted to do more than that. He wanted, so this was his dream, and he started it, and then he dropped dead in the middle of World War II, trying to get a military contract because he couldn't procure metal, right, in the wartime if it wasn't for wartime. So he went down to Washington to get a contract to make something, and in the middle of the thing, he died in his hotel room in the night. And
Oh my God.
my dad was working in the company just to make enough money to get married to my mother, and I had to go down and retrieve him. And he walked into the Navy department and came out with a contract with a heck of a lot of money to go make a certain product that nobody else could make. They refused to make it. So he brought it back, and there was a guy in Providence who was a friend of his named Bob Blanding, and he was a brilliant manufacturing guy, I guess, and he took this thing and figured out how to make it. And do you know, Takeo won the Navy E Award, which is the highest award you could win for military manufacturing during the war, after the war, and for excellence, and for making that little, it was a gun mount for machine guns on airplanes, believe it or not. And so that's what saved the company. But my dad stuck with the company after that, and he ran it until 91, 92, and I was there since the 80s, and I was in the 70s, and so at some point I took a little bit different position there, and did some interesting management changes and things like that, and the company's gone on, and by golly, you know, it's most interestingly is, and that would be 3 generations, and now the 4th generation is in there, the 2 boys, Ben and John, and I will tell you, I am so proud of those boys, because they are there on a genuine work ethic, and with zero entitlement. You know, they just love the people. I think they grew up in a home with people that loved the employees more than anything else, and they saw that, and they grew up loving that, I think, and here they are.
Well, actually, jumping to that, I'll jump with you. What's fascinating about the family and the company is that no edict from you for Ben and John to work.
I never
at Takeo.
invited them.
And you know, I happened to be over there the other day just visiting, and they are very much grown-up men with a comfort about themselves, very comfortable in their own shoes, but humble is definitely a trait that is immediate when you meet them. But what's fascinating to me about it is that they take their jobs independently and very seriously, and actually talk to you as if they haven't seen you in a while, and they may not have, because one's on the road and one's running the shop, or you know, one's running the marketing part and one's, you know, on the road. And it must be something to be part of a family business where there's never been a gun to your head, but the family wants to continue in it. That's fascinating.
It's the same with me. I never. In fact, I'm
Your
not
father
sure
never said you had to be there, right?
I'm not sure he thought I should be there. I'm not sure that I wasn't like sort of the most least likely to ever succeed in the eyes of everybody. But anyway, we got through all that. And these 2 boys, I would tell you, no, I never invited them in, and they never asked. But I found them working in maintenance when they were in high school, and they worked their way right through the factory, all the way through. And now, you know, and then they left. They both left, just as I did after school. They left the company for a couple of years, and then came back and had worked for other people. And I'm going to tell you, look at both of them. They're both very different. And that John Hazen White III is the best salesman I think I've ever seen in my life. Aside from me, maybe he's the best salesman I've ever seen in my life. That Benjamin, same thing on the inside of the company. He's just mad. They both are magical.
The feeling for the employees at your place is unique.
It's all about them. I never went to business school, so all I could ever do was relate to the people side of this equation, and that's how we've built the business. The belief in, oh, look, at 500 people. When I started running, it was $30 million in sales. We had 500 people. Now it's 250 in that building, 500 people. And it's just beginning to turn over with the baby boomer exodus generational thing. So these people are 30, 40-year people. And we built a great thing together.
What's the key ingredient to making your people feel part of the mission?
To love them, to provide for them, to provide for their families. All I've ever believed is if we have a place that's clean and safe and happy, and the employees are able to grow and prosper and develop along with their families, we do summer camps and all kinds of things for the families, then we'll be fine. They will give everything they can to help us all succeed. It's just as simple as loving people.
And being on the floor.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
You love being on the floor.
I love those people.
I haven't been on the floor with John in a long time, but I've been on the floor a few times with him. And again, this is not a commercial. I'm just telling the truth. they stop, they hug, you know everybody's name, blah, 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 blah. And I've never heard anybody who worked at Takeo say that they didn't enjoy working at Takeo, which is, these days, not easy to achieve.
No, it's harder to achieve. But you know, we have a whole new generational thing coming in. Now we've got 5 generations in the same workplace. We only had 1 for the first 30 years of my career, but now we got 3 or 4 or 5 of them, whatever it is, and so trying to figure out what drives them. It's all different. So I am now working really hard at understanding what each generation is expecting in the workplace, what they want to take away from it, what they want the company to do. There's a big feeling now about people wanting to know what their company is doing to support the world, you know? And so we're learning about these things. But that's with the value of the people. You know, they bring that to us. They allow us to evolve and to become better, you know? And it's what we do.
What John's learned over the course of time, some business trends and his economic perspective when we come back. Stay with us. Again, the famous Takeo building. How long has the building been there? On Cranston Street.
That's a new addition, but right. The main building's been there about 100 years. It was a trolley car barn, you know, for that part of the world, and the trolley cars would come in at nighttime and go out the other side in the morning after they were maintained. There was no floors; there were just tracks. And I tell you, when we started to build up the business and invest in machinery and equipment, we put in floors, and then we had to put in heavier duty floors because the machinery got heavier and heavier. And my mother, God bless her, came in one day and said, the only thing you're not going to do is cover up those tracks. So we still have the tracks.
What have you learned about managing over the course of time?
Well, many, many things, the first of which is I'm lousy at it. I'm not a very good manager. But you know, I think it's to me, it's more about leadership. Management and leadership both have one thing in common, and that is the need for compassion. You know, because everybody is human. We're all human beings, and we all have our strengths and weaknesses. And as a manager, the most important thing one can do, I think, is to take a person's strengths and support those. Not focus on the weaknesses, but support the strengths. I was talking to some people. I had 10 of my people for a meeting this morning. We were talking about this, and I said, you know, everybody's got strengths and weaknesses, and if you take the same person and those strengths and weaknesses and 2 different companies, in one of those companies, the weaknesses may be a strength. In the other company, a strength may be the weakness. You know, so.
I wish we had all night, but here I think it's important just to reinforce what you're saying. The instinct is for leaders and managers to accept the attributes that somebody brings to the table, but try to work on their weaknesses.
Yeah, that's what I mean, support them, right? Oh, yeah, support.
No, but to work,
yeah,
to focus, right. and to critique and to try to develop. I agree with you. In sports, in business, in life, if you spend time, you know, reinforcing and accelerating and drawing out the best of what people already can do, the other stuff somewhat takes care of itself in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And you know, another thing I would just comment on quickly is that one thing I have learned is that in management and leadership, either one, the objective is not to come in with a do as I say attitude, because everybody has something to bring to the table. I've had some managers around that place over the years that have absolutely been dictatorial, and that just does not work, because you know what? They don't know everything.
You see a distinction, if I'm hearing you correctly, between leadership and management.
I think I do. I think I do. I think
split that atom for me.
Yeah, it's hard. I think leadership is more of a bring along. You know, it's to some extent a rally the troops kind of thing. You know, with some accountability to it, and the management is to do the things that the leadership is trying to bring us to. So, you know, strategy and development and vision and all that stuff, that's kind of a leadership thing. And people need to buy into you. You know, they need to buy into you as a leader. Me as I don't view myself as the best of anything, but I do think I have a connection with people that brings them along with me to do what we're going to do successfully together. One thing I'll tell you, I have never, ever, ever lied to those people about anything. So if I come to them with a hard choice or an idea or a path, they believe me. They believe me because they know it's for their best interest, for all of our best
And I'm not going to
interest.
dig in, but every company has its ups and downs. You've had a few moments when you've had to have some come to papa conversations with not only the family but the company, and
The last 2 years.
things are good now, right?
Yep, 2 years ago I came back and injected myself and took control of the company again, February 1st or so of 2018, and we needed to do some real fast footwork to move ourselves back into the place we wanted to be. Now we're stronger than we've ever been. But
Economy, your take?
strong right now. Okay, now look, we're in the construction-oriented business.
Are you a leading indicator or a trailing indicator of economy with your products, heating parts?
Well, I think-
define what is the bumper sticker reference to the product that
Yeah,
Taco
I've just
makes?
figured that out after 50 years in the business. If I had, I would say the control of the flow of water.
Gotcha.
Okay. So on the residential side, home heating,
Yeah.
that's a follower because so much of my business is replacement. Okay, that's not a booming business. The commercial construction, that's a leader. You know, that's where we can see 6 months, a year in advance when that's going to stop.
How's that going?
Good, strong, absolutely strong.
So that gives you a confidence about, what, 6 to 18 months out that the trend in the cycle is going
Yep.
to continue.
Yeah, and that's with tariffs and everything else. The only concern I have now is how this coronavirus takes shape. But you know, I'm not the lone ranger there. Every one of my competitors is buying from the same 5 people in China, you know, kind of thing. So it's we're all in the same boat. But it's that one concerns me.
We only have a minute or so. Your commitment to the community has never waned. Why is that important?
Because you know something, Danny, the White family and the Taco family have all grown and prospered in this community. And I've always believed that the most important thing we can do is to give back to the places we've taken from. And that's why the White family does what we do in this community, and Taco as well. Pretty simple. And also, you know, we've provided a chance for people to take part in things they may never take part in, the Philharmonic and the PPAC and things like that. So that's a good thing for my employees and our people.
And it seemingly, even through some tough times, hasn't waned. Your commitment didn't wane.
Even in bad times. When we had some tough times financially, I did it personally, you know, because the White Family Foundation is a very strong little, it's not the biggest foundation in the state, but I'll guarantee you and wager that it's one of the most impactful.
We only have a few seconds. Philanthropy is important.
Totally.
Yeah. Perhaps even more than the taxpayer dollar sometimes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Congratulations on 100 years.
Thank you so much.
Come back a lot.
I'd love
we
to.
miss you. John Hazen White Jr. Next time we're going to battle over some politics.
Yes, sir.
Tonight was just fun. I got to get a suit like that too. Final word when we come back. So we've had a good conversation this week on education and how we fund it. We'll continue with that next week as well, and gosh knows what else. By the way, 100 years in business. How about that milestone? Have a great weekend. See ya.